This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Holistic pharmacist is largely a made-up term. Neal Smoller doesn't want to push drugs. Quite the opposite. Neal wants people off unnecessary medications and using nutrition instead, along with exercise, stress management, sleep, and yes, supplements to prevent disease as much as possible. A holistic pharmacist is the best of both worlds, a knowledgeable, accessible professional who looks to natural options first, while at the same time applying to the supplement industry all the rigor, diligence, and integrity pharmacists are known for. We can only live our best lives if we live in a truly holistic manner, balancing healthy lifestyle choices, well-made supplements used strategically, and traditional medical interventions, says Neal Smoller. Valeria Teles interviews Neal to explore what a real holistic care plan looks like. Dr. Neal Smoller is a holistic pharmacist with a practice in the most famous small town in America, Woodstock, New York. He is the founder of Woodstock Vitamins, as well as host of the Big Mouth Pharmacist podcast. With his no-nonsense, slightly sarcastic approach, he provides the best-in-class supplements and advice. Here is the interview with Dr. Neal Smoller.
In your own words, who is Neal Smoller?
I am a slightly sarcastic, slightly unprofessional healthcare professional that likes to kind of tell the truth about health and wellness industry. I'm a big advocate for consumers, a big advocate for the supplement industry, but I believe that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and as a result, we're misled, and at worst, we spend lots of money that we don't need to. And really, there are some people that are getting harmed by this.
So true. Thank you for what you do. What motivates you to be a good person and to do good in the world?
I think that is the million-dollar question. Why do so many people, with their trust and authority that they've built for themselves, use it for financial gain? It is very, very easy to just sell out and tell people what they want to hear and sell whatever products or give whatever advice is most financially beneficial for people. So the motivation really just comes from a compass that says, this is the kind of person that I want to be. I don't want to be the person, another in a long line of shysters and charlatans that are misinforming and misleading people for money.
So do you have an inspiration? Was it your parents or someone?
I would just say that I've had, I'm a pharmacist first and foremost, so I grew up in independent pharmacies. And in those situations, the pharmacist was a community leader, one of the most accessible healthcare practitioners where people would turn to for advice. And none of my mentors were of the ilk where they would put their own profit ahead of the better advice. It was always better and more ethical, obviously, to tell people, no, you don't need that. So that was a reflex and an instinct that I learned as a 14-year-old watching my mentors care for their patients in our pharmacies. And now I've just extended what I believe is the best part of the pharmacy, the pharmacist, out into the natural products world where we can do this, where we can tell people to stop the madness, and you don't need all of this stuff.
Wow. That makes me think about the medicine men in tribes, indigenous ancient tribes, the shaman. So it might be the modern shaman without knowing.
Right.
Yeah, I know you have not probably thought about, but yeah, that came to my mind. What do you think is the world's greatest need?
The world's greatest need is empathy, I believe. I believe that we are too busy being stuck in our own bubbles to really look outside of that bubble and to realize that uh, our problems may not be reflected on others and their problems may not be reflected on us. So we need to kind of open our minds to the experience of all of our fellow people. And I know that's a lot to kind of say, okay, the troubles of 7 billion people are now on me, but to be more open and understanding of the plights that people are going to, because we all can lend our voice to at least supporting and helping people where they need it.
Yeah. A lot of people, they give me the answer of love, empathy. It's pretty close to it, or part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think empathy is a big part of love. I think that, you know, I, I don't know if they're just into the song lyrics, all we need is love, right? But it's a very easy answer for them. Yeah, I think that, love implies a lot more, and it has a lot more emotional weight. So it's difficult to love everyone. I mean, there's a lot of jerks out there. So, but I think we can be empathetic to the plight of the jerk as well as the plight of those that we would care for.
Right. So, more specifically, what is love to you?
That's a tough question. I think that the idea of love is basically like a reciprocal kind of trust and respect and understanding and empathy, kind of like all in one. Um, and and I believe that it has very little to do with what we normally connect it with, which is like lust and like the sexual energy. I really feel like, the love that people need most is that kind of idea that we are here to complement each other's strengths and to commit to each other despite the obstacles that are in front of us. I feel like that's probably the best description.
I like that. Do you believe in God?
I do not. Well, I guess what I should say is that I believe that I am one of those agnostic atheists where it's like, if we really were simple about the whole thing, there is no proof there is no God, and there is no proof that there is God, and it's faith on both sides. So I am not a religious person, but I'm a very big supporter of people's right to uh, believe whatever religion they choose.
Right. Do you have any spiritual beliefs?
If anything, I get down with the Buddhists more than anything. I think that, and it probably has less to do with the fact of spirituality and like the purpose of life and really focusing on what's important right now and like detaching from all of the conditioning and that. So I think the Buddhists speak to me more than anybody.
What do you think is the purpose and meaning of your life?
I kind of feel like the idea of attaching a purpose to a life is just one way for us to kind of get through it all and kind of point us in a direction. And so while I'm here, the direction that I've pointed myself in is to first and foremost raise a family. I want I have 4 children now. I want a squad of people to go out into this world and hopefully elevate the bar of the human existence to some degree, and doing that through care of the community and such. So I feel like that is the ultimate purpose here, is to make my kids into great adults that make great communities. And if we all were doing that, that would have such a rippling effect across the world. And then my professional purpose or direction is really just around advocacy for people. And that same kind of notion is that we have to do our work in our own backyard. I just want to maybe extend my backyard to a larger audience, so that way more people can become aware of the misdirection and misgivings of the wellness space, so that way we can again be better within that space.
About becoming a better human being, right? And then a community, and then the world, because it starts with us. I like the way you said that. So what is the difference between a holistic and conventional pharmacy?
So I made up the term holistic pharmacist. One thing, I'm not as a BSer, I will tell you exactly what's what. I made that term up. And part of the reason that I made the term up is that we have this natural dichotomy that's fed to us, that the natural products industry is on one side and big pharma and the established medical community is on the other side. And that isn't true. In fact, I point out quite often that they're the same guy. They're the same organization. And we think that big pharma is the devil and the natural products industry are the angels. I think that they're jerks. So I came up with the term holistic pharmacist to kind of get a centrist approach. If we're talking about politics, I'm just trying to be right there in the middle. I'm not Republican or Democrat. I think that we need to go one way or another depending on the scenario, and we have to use the best advice. So I believe a holistic pharmacist is somebody that's not pushing medications, that doesn't want only to use medications. In fact, looks at healing and wellness and disease management as first a choices paradigm. So it's really about your mindset, and it's really about the choices that we make every day, multiple times a day, is what will have the biggest impact on our diseases. So our holistic model is one where we focus on the lifestyle choices, the autonomous decisions that we can make, where we can buy supplements if we want to, but then it comes full circle in bringing in medical care to this, because a lot of times the people in the natural industry, they'll say it's diet and supplements and that's it, alpha and omega and nothing more. But I'm telling you that in order to live our best lives, we need to have the lifestyle stuff, the supplements, and the medical care to be a true holistic approach to everything.
Right. So I guess that leads to my next question. Do we really need supplements? And how do we measure the quality of the supplements we take?
Yeah, those are two very big questions. So the first question being, do we need supplements? And the answer to that is no, of course not. It's just sort of like you don't need an OBGYN. There's people giving birth still in this world without a hospital. They're still doing that. So, but we have the ability and the technology to derive benefits from naturally occurring compounds. And so we could take advantage of that. I believe that most of us don't need as many supplements as we are taking. And in fact, we need to focus and be more strategic about the supplements that we use. So I'll tell people that no, if you can make all the healthy lifestyle decisions and remove supplements for your life, there are 5 that I've identified. I don't even say 5 supplements. I say 5 nutrients that most of us don't get even in the best diet. And as a result, we should supplement them when possible. And so one of those being omega-3 supplements. So we don't get enough omega-3 in the American diet. Most of us will eat fish maybe once every month, if every other week if you're lucky. And we really should be eating a substantial amount every day. It should be one of the major proteins that we eat because the omega-3s have so much benefit in the body, with the cardiovascular system, in our eyes, our brains, joint, all of that stuff, right? So we don't eat enough of those. We should eat more. If you can't eat more, then you should supplement that. Probiotics. We're learning lots about the microbiome and its benefit on the body beyond the gut. So that's one. Calcium. Bone support. This is a big thing. Most of us, I think the data from the National Institute of Health said something around 40% of postmenopausal women will get enough calcium in their diet. And so vitamin D being another part of that. Protein, that's another nutrient that Americans in general will eat lots of protein. But if you talk to individuals, you'll find that they're short of their daily goals, the the numbers that we should be meeting as humans to ensure we have enough protein. And then the last one here, and this is my vital five, is what I refer to them as, are micronutrients. So some of us are, vegan or vegetarian, so we'll need B12 or iron or things like those. So we'll need those micronutrients to kind of round out any potential deficiencies because of what we're doing. Or, so somebody doesn't eat lots of greens every day. So maybe a proper green supplement or green powder might be a way for you to get a serving or two into your diet to get to your goals. So I don't believe that people need supplements, but I think those five are I can make a fairly good argument that there is enough evidence to prove that those nutrients aren't in excess in our diet. In fact, they're in a deficiency state. And if we meet those goals, then we'll have profound health benefits. But that's it. Also, those are the only five I really feel fit into that category. So then if decide, to be strategic about supplements, we're not strategic. We just kind of willy-nilly. We just go based on whatever our friends say. We call it last person syndrome. You're in the line at Whole Foods, and somebody behind you mentions something about GMO, and then all of a sudden now you're anti-GMO because that's how you picked it up. It's like a viral nature of our supplement, trendy, following the flashy object. The squirrel runs in front of us, right? So we don't want that. We want people to be strategic. So the strategy around using supplements should be lifestyle stuff first. Get it from your diet as much as possible. If you can't, then here's the vital five. Try to optimize those. And if we need to then introduce supplements as a treatment modality or whatever, we need to know, what are we taking it for? What dose should we be getting of this thing? What form should we be getting? And when should we expect what benefits? And once all of that is clear, then we experiment. Then we start that supplement and we make it a part of our regimen because we want a plan. We don't want to just, kind of throw this against a wall and hope it sticks. So once we go down that road, we can quickly measure whether or not this thing is beneficial. And it's quite simple. It's as simple as dropping something that doesn't work. So if you start on, let's say turmeric is your new supplement and that's what you want to use, and you want to use it for your joint pain, and I tell you that it'll start to work after probably 3 to 5 doses, you'll notice an effect. And if after 3 to 5 doses it's not working and you've optimized the form and the dose and all of this stuff, it's not going to work for you and it's time to drop it. And we're not quick enough to drop the supplements we take. So my thought here is building a strategy around taking supplements will limit and refine it down to the supplements that actually work and are actually needed. But most of us can get away with not using any supplements.
So about the quality, how do we know for sure? I take omega-3 and other supplements, but how do I know for sure that they are high quality, or at least they have enough quality, they're helping me somehow?
Right. Well, that's the other thing that people need to identify and understand, is that the natural products industry is poorly regulated, if at all. And as a result, the products that we buy are different from the things that we talk about. And what I'm saying is you're talking about omega-3. I'm talking about omega-3 and how it's beneficial. But the product that you buy that's labeled omega-3 is potentially rancid, is potentially the wrong dose. So there's a big gap between those two things. And we have to help people get across that gap, or better yet, make that gap not exist by only providing supplements that meet or exceed standards for what best in class would be. And that's what we kind of do here. So how does a consumer know? Well, I'm telling you right now that I do this for a living. Every day I'm looking at different quality reports and putting together all of these standards and information around supplement quality. And it's nearly impossible for me to understand and get to the bottom of it all. There's so much deception and misinformation. It's difficult. And because these supplement companies work inside of a black box, there's no transparency. We don't know what's real. So what we can do is to teach people that they need to be aware. They need buyer be aware, not beware, but be aware of this situation and what's going on. And there's a really good chance that the thing that you're buying isn't what you think it is. And so you know, here's a bit of advice. Don't buy supplements like you're looking for a hotel or a restaurant on vacation. Don't look at reviews. Reviews are for other things. If the industry is broken, as I just said, which it is, right, and quality is all across the board, and nobody knows what they're talking about, why would you trust a review? you know, so the and reviews are faked. I mean, that's really what we should understand, is that reviews are there to pad your perception. If you see 100 reviews that are 5 stars, you think this is good, like it's a shortcut, and it's being exploited. And we try to teach people all of the shortcuts that are being exploited to get you to trust a brand or a supplement. So what I would say is, like, how do you know? Well, you have to find somebody in your community, I would say, that you can trust, that speaks to the quality of supplements. But it is very difficult to find those people. I'm going to be, honest. We our information out there where we can teach you what's important. We just did a whole series around mushrooms and the deception in the mushroom industry, and we're kind of going down the line of all the different supplements, so that way people have access to this information to at least be aware again of what are the potential downsides.
Right. Well, from my experience as a consumer of supplements, I have seen the difference when I take probiotic, also omega-3 oil. When I supplement with that, I see the difference. My mood's better. Astaxanthin, just immediate almost. The other ones, when I start taking them in the very beginning, I can see the difference, and then just fades away. I have no idea if it's working or not.
Right. And so we also have to separate out the placebo effect. A lot of people, when I talk about placebo effect, they think I'm being condescending, but I'm actually being very, again, an advocate standpoint. The idea of the placebo is that our minds are extremely powerful, and the minds are the ones that are secreting all the hormones that are telling the body to do all the stuff that it needs to do. So if we believe that something is going to be beneficial, we're going to have that effect in our body sometimes. And the placebo effect can be very high with things. And again, that's not a dismissive thing. That is a explanation of human behavior and our connection to this world, So
and it has been proven.
Oh yeah.
Scientifically proven.
Not even the placebo effect, but the nocebo effect is the one that fascinates me, where you can think something negative is going to happen and a side effect happens, or like some people can induce disease by thinking that it's going to happen. So,
well, it makes sense to me, but I didn't know we had a term for that. You mentioned vitamin dose, that we should know how much to take. Is there such a thing as vitamin overdose?
Absolutely. And in fact, this is what I see a lot when people go to who I refer to as charlatans, the practitioners that may or may not be licensed, actual real professionals. And what I mean by that is, like, you can go through training, but until you have a government body holding you liable to the advice you give and the words you say, you are not playing the same game. So when you go to these unlicensed, unregulated charlatans that are just throwing down multiple supplements, you run the risk of overdose very, very quickly. In the medical world, we say as soon as you have more than 3 medications, you're going to definitely have a drug interaction to some degree, right? There's going to be some interplay of those medications. And I think the Mayo Clinic said it was 5. 5 is the magic number. And so, like, imagine being on a supplement with all of these different ingredients, natural or not. They're going to interact with each other, and they're going to have additive effects. I've seen so many people taking this shake and this B vitamin and this multivitamin, and the number of B vitamins that they're taking are excessive. And just by taking away the supplements, they feel better. So we go from
that makes sense.
They're seeking out help. They want to be listened to, so they go to these practitioners who, and I say that with air quotes, that give them advice, and some of the advice may be good, but then they try to sell them stuff. What ends up happening is the stuff ends up making them not feel good. And so by stripping that all away and simplifying it, again, getting more strategic, you can actually eliminate a lot of problems for people.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. If you don't mind me asking, what supplements do you take on a daily basis?
I take fish oil, probiotics, and collagen powder.
Oh, collagen.
Yep. So collagen is one of the proteins. It's a unique protein source that I would definitely say that collagen is one of those trendy supplements. I just had a dentist on my podcast. We were talking about charcoal toothpaste, and I said, "Do you have any advice for people?" And he said, "Don't be the first on the trend, but don't be the last either." So, I sat out the collagen trend and watched. And now we have some data established that athletes that use collagen will have less injury or less joint pain, right? We have data that shows that collagen can help people with inflammatory bowel disease, right? So we have data now that shows that there's some advantage, and lo and behold, we don't get enough of these types of foods in our diet. So when the collagen's made correctly, it can be a beneficial supplement for people, but that's the big asterisk: is it being made correctly? So those are the supplements I use, and collagen is one of those.
Great. You spoke of trends before, and we tend to follow a lot of those. Just by overhearing somebody on the store, we might sort of buy the product. I have
Yeah.
been hearing a lot about CBD. What is it, and who needs it?
Oh yeah. I can't. I was just saying. I say on my podcast practically weekly now. I can't go a week without talking about CBD. It is the biggest trend in the natural products industry, bar none. This is like factors greater than any trend we've seen. In fact, like in a traditional supplement store, gut health is going to be the leading group of products, and that's normally like 10 to 50 products will make up that gut health discipline. Two CBD products in my store does double the sales of our entire gut health section. Bottles of CBD. That's how many people are using it, and that's how much people are excited about it. So CBD is one of the two components of a cannabis plant, and it has psychoactive effects, but it doesn't get you high. What it does is it acts as an anxiolytic, a sedative, and it also has some pain modulation effects. It can affect muscles and the tone of muscles. So people are using it for like things like anxiety or to help them sleep at night, and some people even use it for some arthritis or neuropathies and stuff like that. My advice here is the same as it has been for all of these supplements. Make sure you're getting the right dose, the right form of a clean product. You know what to expect. And with the supplement industry, I call it the Wild West. With the CBD space, I call it Mad Max Thunderdome. People are eating babies. It is a mess out there. There was last year in Utah, there was 50 people that got injured from a CBD product. Synthetic CBD is making its way into the marketplace. The mislabeling, the misdosing, the misperceptions, and so it's very difficult to kind of navigate. I have a couple like little tips besides like partnering up with somebody that you can trust. So quality is an issue with CBD. So a lot of companies are doing bait and switch. They're putting up test results that most consumers don't know how to read. So they just see the test results and they say, okay, it's good. But then, those test results aren't indicative of any of their current lots, or they're not conclusive. So they're, ignore the test results unless you really know how to read them. And the other thing is don't get ripped off. People spend way too much money on CBD. In my travels, I've looked at over 40 different brands at this point, like deeply around CBD, and I found one that I stick with. I'm not even going to recommend it here because that might change. They might get slimy in the future because that's the nature of this thing. So I don't want my name to be tied to it, but there's one brand that I trust because of their transparency. And what I found when I looked at the space, quality brands are less than 10 cents per milligram of CBD. That's a good kind of like yardstick. So if you buy a bottle of CBD and it says 500 milligrams, it shouldn't be more than $50. And that's just a good kind of yardstick. Now, that's not the only thing you want to look at, but that's a good way that you can get sense to like if you're getting a ripped off or not at least. And and experiment with it. That's the big thing with CBD is, much like I say it all the time, like Suzanne Summers and Oprah were talking about hormone replacement therapy about 10 years ago, and these wrong expectations and this weird perception about what these things would do. And that's what CBD is doing right now. People are like, I can buy any CBD, one at the gas station or a flea market, and I'll take a drop and all of my troubles will go away. And that's not true. What you need to know is that you have to get a good dose, and you have to know how to titrate your dose to an effect that you're looking for, what's the best way to use it. And we've got, if you're going to, send people on, we've got a whole page set up to teach people how to use CBD better.
That's wonderful. Have you tried it yourself?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Well, I'm an old school pothead. When in college, like I found marijuana, and I was pretty much in love with Mary Jane. But so I know the effects of CBD. CBD is a very calming thing. I've used the CBD product when I've had anxiety at the store here, and it definitely does what people think it will do, which is calm you right down. So I've used it myself, definitely.
Is there a risk of becoming addictive?
No, the only risk of, they say marijuana is a gateway drug, and I believe that it's a gateway drug to Funyuns and Yodels and Doritos and McDonald's, because you just get hungry and you want to eat all that stuff. So there is no risk. And this is why I enjoy CBD so much. And I'm excited for it to become a supplement, like legal supplement, because right now it's in this weird gray space, because it's the most powerful thing that we've been able to get our hands on. It has these effects. So it's stronger than anything that we have, whether it's a botanical or even a traditional medicine. And it doesn't have the same liabilities. So it doesn't have the same risk of dependence or drug interactions at the level that we'll be using. So
That's good to know. Let's talk about inflammation. What is inflammation, and how do we prevent or reduce inflammation in the body?
So inflammation is a normal, natural part of our immune system. The first thing that you should know is when somebody's talking about the immune system, if they don't pause and say, the immune system is so stinking complex, I am going to simplify it. I don't understand the full immune system. You shouldn't trust that person. Anybody that's simplifying the immune system without first saying, dude, this is crazy. Like I took 2 years of immunology, microbiology, and I will be the first one to tell you, oh my God, my head hurts. Like just thinking about the complexity of the immune system. So inflammation is a natural response to an external stimulus, or to any stimulus, I should say. So, I tell people, what's inflammation? So scratch your fingernail down your arm back and forth a couple times, and in a couple minutes, it'll get red and warm, and that's inflammation. So inflammation is what happens when your cells break due to some sort of stimulus, and it's like a glitter bomb. It releases stuff everywhere, and that stuff recruits components of the immune system to clear out any broken stuff and try to get rid of the stimuli that's causing the problem. So there is this thing that's going on in the natural products industry talking about the role of inflammation in disease. And I teach people that it's a kind of a chicken and the egg scenario. We don't know which one comes first. I believe that we make bad choices, which then increase the amount of inflammatory components that are present, which then will in parallel, lead to diseases. So I believe that it's not that the inflammation causes the diseases. I believe that our choices cause the disease, and inflammation is a big component to the whole thing, right? And
Is the symptom, yeah.
right. And so chronic inflammation is where, the analogy I give is, imagine you're trying to farm and grow corn, except the land that you're trying to farm is being bombed during a war. So the cells that are there to clean up the bad stuff start attacking the normal healthy cells. And until you reduce the risk factor, stop making the bad choices, get rid of those stimuli, chronic inflammation is going to continue, and it's going to make a very ugly situation uglier, and it's going to contribute to these diseases. So when I hear people talk about having to control your inflammation, they normally are talking about herbs like turmeric and ginger and rosemary and all these different things. And while those things are healthy spices that should be a part of a varied diet, I don't believe that that's the responsible thing to tell people. The responsible thing is to start at the bottom of our holistic model, our wellness pyramid, where we say, make better choices. Get sleep at night, reduce inflammation dramatically, deal with your stress, right? Eat healthy stuff. Eat small, frequent meals, exercise. These are things that will reduce your inflammation and reduce your exposure to inflammation, that will then hopefully reduce your risk of it developing to chronic inflammation and disease. Now, that being said, the top of the pyramid is medical stuff. So if you have high blood pressure, that will contribute to inflammation. If you have high cholesterol, that will contribute to inflammation. So you need to treat that stuff. A lot of people avoid medications because they're quote unquote bad. But that's not how you should be thinking about this. You should be saying, what can I do right now to eliminate or mitigate any of my risk factors towards chronic disease, because chronic inflammation is going to be a big part of this. So I say, yes, eat all of those things that are in the blogs. If you Google anti-inflammatory compounds, you'll see that list that I gave you. And then, yeah, sure, eat them. But the supplements themselves won't solve your problems. It's really addressing the risk factors that are going to be the biggest impact.
I like that. Yeah, the holistic approach, finding the cause, the root of our problems. You mentioned immune system, how complex it is. So I think I remember asking somebody I interviewed not long ago, where is the immune system? Is there a location in the body?
Yeah, I think it's like 2 miles south of the place where they had Woodstock, actual Woodstock, not like our town. I think it's right around. No, I'm just kidding, of course.
Okay, let me get there to fix mine. Right.
Your immune system is like right next to Bethel Woods, where the real concert was. The Your immune system is literally everywhere. It's every cell in your body. We have this very like distributed immune system, and then we have a very centralized type of immune system. So most of your immune cells are going to be in or around that, because that's one of the biggest entryways of things to get into the body. So we have lots of cells there, but your immune system is literally everywhere. A very non-specific reaction out in the periphery. Again, like if you get a cut at the end of your finger, your immune system is there and starts the healing process. That's your immune system, all the way into dealing with upper respiratory tract infections, or even within your blood-brain barrier, the vault of your body. So your immune system is everywhere.
What do you have to say about anti-inflammatory drugs?
The same thing I say about anti-inflammatory supplements is that the anti-inflammatory effect is one of the two components. Most of those anti-inflammatory drugs are also reducing pain, and that's what makes us feel better. Long-term use of anti-inflammatory drugs or supplements, let's say it this way. The long-term use of anti-inflammatory drugs, specifically NSAIDs, have been shown to cause problems. So it can disrupt your GI tract, your kidneys, or even lead to heart disease or even heart attacks we've seen now. So anti-inflammatory supplements that are working on similar, if not identical, pathways as the anti-inflammatory drugs could then theoretically carry those same risks. And the reason we don't know if that's the case is because nobody studied it, because supplements don't need to be studied. So I believe that anti-inflammatory drugs are necessary for certain disease management, but we need to manage the risks of the drugs as well. I teach people just in general, because a lot of people they don't like me when I say that. I say, you're taking medicine, so you need to take another medicine to combat the effects of it. And everyone's like, I don't want to do that. Well, if you think about us like a pendulum, we start out in the middle. We're normally normal and healthy and happy, right? But then we get some sort of disease process, and the pendulum swings one way. So we want to swing it back to the normal. So we do whatever therapy, whether it's a supplement or a drug or lifestyle choice. And sometimes we'll get it back to the middle, but sometimes we'll either undershoot it or overshoot it. And we're still not in the middle. So now we have to bring it back down to the middle. And we may need other medications or supplements or other interventions to make that real. And that's, you can whine all you want about that, but that's reality. Medicines, we don't want them to do everything. And sometimes when you do just one thing specifically, that can be harmful too. So we have to kind of take the good with the bad and kind of work with what we have.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. Is there a supplement, an effective supplement or supplements for ragweed and pollen allergies? And the same question would go for depression and anxiety, which I think for anxiety you already covered. The CBD would be one option. That's basically my question. Allergies, depression, anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I like to say is that there is nothing that's effective. That the language is important when we talk about this. No supplement has been proven safe or effective. What we can say is that there's evidence, whether it's anecdotal or like small trials, that have shown that it can support or inhibit certain effects in the body. So there are compounds that can support a healthy allergic response. So nettles, for example, is the big herb that's used for allergies. We have a product that I love. It's called Allergy Support, and it has a mix of nettles and bioflavonoids and quercetin. Quercetin has been shown to have what it's called a mast cell stabilization effect. If we were talking about the glitter balloon before with the immune system, the quercetin makes it so the glitter balloon is less likely to pop. So, a combination of those things it can be very, very beneficial for people, especially if it's formulated correctly. And then from a anxiety standpoint, you nailed it. There's lots of different herbs out there and vitamins that can have a calming effect, a sedating effect. The best thing for anxiety and depression is meditation and mindfulness. Because anxiety and depression is basically the gap between how we view the world and what's real. The bigger the discrepancy, the more anxiety we'll have. And some people say like anxiety is a fear of the future, right? That hasn't occurred yet. And depression is holding on to a past that we can't change.
So true.
So, right? And so the best thing, because we're holistic practitioners, is to not talk about what we can take, but talk about what we can do. So we need to address these discrepancies through traditional therapy. And I tell people to go to mindfulness-based cognitive therapists because those guys and gals seem to be focused on, helping with that discrepancy and helping keeping that gap narrow, building in a meditative practice into your life to retrain your brain to focus on what matters, which is right now in front of you. The analogy, of course, somebody can step on my shoe and I have pain right now, and I can say, oh, that hurts, and then breathe and it's over, right? Because now the pain's gone. Or I can stir on it. And why did that guy step on my shoe? How dare that guy step what a jerk. Now my shoe is ruined, and I can do all of that. And that's like what they refer to as suffering. So, the idea of just dealing with our pain and being honest with our pain and stop the suffering that we induce on ourselves. But, we need help. So like I said, I've been anxious and I can't breathe through it. So let's try a little CBD. And that's a good option for people to deal with those symptoms. From a depression standpoint, that's tough. It's tough to do from a supplement standpoint. There is an herb called St. John's wort that, if done correctly, will have very similar mechanism of action to selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors like Prozac or Zoloft. But it has lots of liabilities as drug interactions. And, the one thing I always like to call people out on is if you're willing to take a supplement and you want the more natural effect, let's be honest, what is it doing? Saw palmetto is working like a drug. St. John's wort is a drug. Red yeast rice is a drug. So why don't we just take the medication and stop playing games, right? Let's take what's real, what's been tested, that we know will work, and we know what the liabilities are, and no doesn't have any of the potential contaminants or adulterants that are found in these products.
Wow. I absolutely love your commitment to education and love
Thank you.
1,000 times your holistic approach to healing without any agenda. You're just very straightforward. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure for being on. Keep up your good work. And and I think that if we were being honest, the advice isn't sexy. Right? It's not trendy,
Never.
but it is real. That the real advice is to make good choices and ignore the hype and stay focused on the plan that we know works. And you will have a much better life without all that chaos.
Right. I have a few more questions for you. I call this section final questions, whatever comes to mind. What is another word for healing?
That's interesting. Well, I mean, another word for healing, I guess, would be, in my eyes, would be self-care. I believe that, caring for ourselves, whether it's mentally or physically, is an act of healing, or it's how healing gets accomplished. So I would say self-care.
As a process, too, day to day, right? How do you define success?
Well, that's tough because I'm one of those guys that always moves the goalpost on myself, right? So I'm constantly reinventing what success is. But I guess, you know, success is getting up off the mat when you get life kicks you in the teeth. I think that's success. Just getting back up and trying again. There's a lot of different ways that we can go through this life. We can go through it very safely and not set goals for ourselves and just phone it in and just do what we're doing, or we can push. And I believe that success is willingness to push. And then when you meet adversity, not letting it knock you down, but instead getting back up and saying, I'm going to keep going. So.
What was the hardest lesson to learn about yourself and life?
Oh, that's a great question because I am a little bit of an ego dude. I lived in this gap between the story I told myself and who I really was, and I neither of them were bad, but because the gap existed, there was a tremendous amount of pain. So and I would say suffering as well. So I believe that the biggest lesson was just finally coming to grips with the idea that the story isn't helping. I used to use it as like a motivating thing, so the story isn't helping. I need to, be more in tune to who I am and, get back to, this is why I stress strategy so much. We need a life strategy. And I had set one. I was dating my wife. I don't even think I was dating her at the time. We were just flirting in class. And she said, "What do you want to do with your life?" Just like you asked me. And I said, "I want to have kids." And I the same exact answer that I just gave you is what I gave her when I was 22 years old or whatever. And so, the idea that I was making decisions under, in the story of I'm doing this for my kids, but that wasn't true because I was spending time away from them and sacrificing my time with them. So the biggest lesson was understanding that my story was not my reality.
What a powerful lesson.
Yeah, it was costly too. Cost me like $1.5 million, but whatever.
Yeah, right. Costly in so many ways, right?
Yep.
If you knew you would die soon, what change would you make in your life?
I would probably spend a lot of time teaching my kids probably the things that I think would be most important so that way they had a good life. And I think that we're all dying soon. And I try to remind myself of that all the time. I think that we take everything for granted and we have to kind of come at it with this perspective that it could end at any moment. So we should be making those decisions. I have something that I do. It's like, if I could go back in time, a lot of people do that. Right? If I could go back in time, I would change this thing. I don't want to go back in time because everything that I have right now is great. I'm not going to deny that. So, and the thing is that what if I am back in time right now from the future, and I lost my memory of the future? So what if that's happened? So why don't I start right now making the better decisions so that way my future self doesn't have to come back in time, right? So.
I like that. Yeah, the idea is like you're already dead now. So if I would live my life again, what do I do? How would I change? Right. That's a great way of thinking too. Do you believe in life after death?
I wish I did because I feel like that's the big question here is everybody's like so terrified that we're just dust after this, which is like all signs point to that's pretty much it. It would be very, very comforting, especially in our very reptilian or like childlike brains to accept that. But I don't think that that's going to happen. I mean, our existence is a freak of nature, a freak event, and we should cherish it because we didn't exist before and we're not going to exist after. Our cells and our body will continue on and life will continue on. And, but our existence is over once we die.
Very good. Last question. What are three things about life you know for sure?
Okay, so I would say that three things that I know about life for sure, and you can kind of like edit my answer together if you had to. Okay, so, all right, good. So I will say that the first thing that I know for sure is that most of our modern problems, again, back to empathy, most of our modern problems that our fellow men are experiencing is due to greed. So that is one thing. So greed is probably one of the greatest evils that humanity can face and individuals can face, is the lust for more, So I think that that is something I definitely know. I know that most of us want to just live our lives, uninhibited. We want to experience it for whatever we want it to be. And so a lot of us are very happy with just let me just try that again. I would say that I believe that life has the potential to be extremely beautiful for everyone if we all were more empathetic towards each other. We could lift, the rising water lifts all of the boats. And so I believe that there's a tremendous potential for all of us to live very happily without much strife. There's always going to be differences of opinion, of course, and issues, but I believe that we can all be better. And I'm the other thing I know is I'm pretty good. I lucked out, man. I have a pretty extraordinary life, and it happened once my triplets were born. I think just that in itself is a very extraordinary thing, and that's the thing that I know, is that I have it very, very good here.
And I can hear your gratitude
Yes.
and appreciation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much again, Neal, for our conversation. It has been informative, meaningful, deep. Where can we find more information about you, your work, products, your pharmacy, and future projects?
So go to woodstockvitamins.com. And that's where most of the stuff is. We have a very active blog, and links to the podcasts and videos that we do is there. And our podcast is The Big Mouth Pharmacist, which is very fitting for me. So,
yeah. Thank you so much again. I'll talk to you soon.
Very welcome.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Dr. Neal Smoller, please visit his website, drnealsmoller.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. I want to thank the Patreon members, Lawrence McGrath, Mark Basden, Terry Clayton, and Aidan Vickrock. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.